What is going on, guys? Today we're going to be taking a look at the Arcade1Up HDMI gaming console. And, I did pick up both the Pac-Man collection and the Mega Man collection. We're going to be focusing mainly on the Mega Man collection because I actually have a lot to say about it. I was very concerned about the gameplay. Well, the quality of the video coming out of these units. Is it using an NES on a chip, which typically has poor quality video output? And a game like Mega Man is going to be very difficult to play if there's a lot of lag introduced. And this comes with a wireless controller, and it has HDMI out. So if it's using an NES on a chip, that means it's got a scaler on the inside. It's going to introduce a whole bunch of lag. So I'm really curious if Arcade1Up did us well when it comes to the components and the quality of this unit. For a price point of only $39, I'm not expecting much, but let's find out. So let's open it up and see what's on the inside. This is the very first time I've been actually excited about the background cardboard. If you check this out, it's actually really, really cool. They got like this CRT effect on this graphic. I thought it was a really cool touch. Like, I might actually keep this piece of cardboard and put it somewhere. So now we take a look at the actual console itself. You can see it's branded after Mega Man. It's pretty small. It's smaller than the NES Classic. It's going to come with an HDMI port to plug directly into your television. It has a micro SD slot, and then it has a USB for power, but it doesn't come with a power adapter. And it has a wireless controller using 2.4 gigahertz, but it does not come with a cable to connect the wireless controller directly to the console. If you wanted to eliminate the lag from the controller itself, you could connect it, but you're going to have to supply your own wire. But hey, it does come with an HDMI cable, so that's pretty cool. When it comes to the controls, we're going to compare the performance and the feel of it. So this is the feel. We're looking at the Super Nintendo controller, and of course it plays really, really well. Now let's look at the AtGames Blast controller. Check out that D-pad. See how it like tilts? It feels like you could almost pull the entire thing off. Like, this is what we call pretty poor quality. Maybe I got a bad unit, but the Blast, it's not a Blast. It's not very good. Now let's look at the Arcade1Up controller. It is better than the Blast, but of course the performance from the Super Nintendo Classic controller is going to be really, really good. But I don't think this is horrible. But the real test is how the controller performs on a game. More on that later. Now you flip on the back end side, you're going to see a little slot for your batteries. Now this does take AAA batteries, but you're going to need something to be able to pull that open. I guess that's good. It's kids proof. Your young kid's not going to go in and like take those batteries out. So that's pretty good. You put a couple AAA batteries in it, and your wireless controller is ready to go. Here's something I wasn't expecting. This is a completely different product line from Arcade1Up than their Arcade1Up cabinets. But dude, it has all the same branding from their arcade cabinets. I figure this is a different product line. It's a different product development team. It's ran by probably a different manufacturer. But look, it has all the same look and feels of the Arcade1Up cabinet, but 16:9, so it's going to look good on your modern television. But is the emulation going to look good? That's the real question that I have here. So, initial impressions of the text, it looks really crisp, guys. This does not look like analog converted to digital with that scaler. This does not look like NES on a chip composite. This looks crisp, and I have to hand it to them because they kept the original aspect ratio of a 4:3. They did not stretch it to 16:9. And so, and first impressions of the actual look and feel of the palettes of this original Nintendo game, it looks pretty accurate. But I think what we need to do is do a side-by-side with another emulation device that emulates Nintendo. And I think a fair comparison would be the Nintendo Classic by Nintendo themselves. I mean, they make a pretty good emulator. A lot of people have said that the NES Classic itself has a very, very good Nintendo emulator inside it. But what about Arcade1Up? I don't know what emulator they're using, but look at the color palettes for the Mega Man. It looks pretty decent, but let's do a comparison side by side, and we can see if we can tell a difference. I'd like you to comment down below, and you tell me if you can see a difference between the NES emulation from the NES Classic and the Arcade1Up. Let's find out. So the video is synchronized to the moment the Mega Man 2 logo appears. Notice the audio changes between the two. Okay, so first question, what do you guys think of the audio in the intro? Now let's take a look at Bubble Man, and let's see how the waterfall and the colors and all that works. Let's see which one has the better quality. A game like Mega Man is much more enjoyable if you have a controller that doesn't have any input delay and it feels right. It's all about timing in this game, especially when you get to the platforms that you're going to see in just a moment. So while you look at the color differences between the NES Classic and the Arcade1Up, you also want to notice the performance on the gameplay. Now, I'm not a Mega Man expert, but getting past these platforms is something that I cannot do if I have a bad controller or if there's tremendous amount of lag. NES Classic, no problem, can do it. But look over at the Arcade1Up. I'm using the Arcade1Up controller, and as you can see, I was able to do it. Now, if I have any amount of lag, like say I have a capture card and that's adding a little bit of delay if I'm playing against that, I can't get across that unless I anticipate the lag, which is a completely different mental process, which I did not do on the Arcade1Up. I actually just pretended like I was playing it like on a CRT that had zero lag, and I was able to do it. Now, that doesn't mean that there's no lag in this at all. I think the performance of the emulation is decent for what you're paying for, and kind of the expectation of what you're going to get from a product like this, a third-party company like Arcade1Up, that's not first party, it's not Capcom, and it's not Nintendo, right? So the Nintendo Classic, on the other hand, is emulation that Nintendo has been building for a very long time. This goes back to, I think it's the GameCube, if I'm not mistaken, and then the Wii and the Wii U, and then the NES Classic. Emulation is something that they continue to progress in. Even now on the Switch Online version is a progression of the simulator that's on the NES Classic. Whereas on the right-hand side, we're talking about Arcade1Up. Where did they get the emulator? This wasn't licensed by Nintendo by any means, so they're going to be using some of their emulator that's going to likely be inferior. But is it worth $40? That's the question. I'm surprised that actually the controller worked as well as it did when I actually was playing a game on it. I was also playing it with the 2.4 gigahertz wireless controllers, so it didn't introduce so much lag that I couldn't get past those platforms, which was the simplest test that I was going to do in a short period of time. But I want to talk more about it. Let's take a look at the inside. Is it running that NES on a chip, which I don't think it is, but what exact chip is it running? Is it worth $40? That's really the question. Is it worth $40? Okay, so we got to speed up this process. This is really simple. You just got to have the right screwdriver, and there's 4 screws on the bottom, and then you can take this sucker apart. Now you're going to see the PCB. You're going to see the little connectors on the side. If you look closely, that's the little adapter for the 2.4 gigahertz. Looks like they have it as a separate like daughter board, so maybe if they wanted to sell this unit, the manufacturer probably makes it for different purposes, and the fact that you do 2.4 gigahertz is likely a separate thing. So I kind of noticed a couple different things on it. There's like a little debug port on there. And while I was playing with it, there's a button on the front. If you hold that while you power it on and you have that connected to a computer, the computer will actually recognize it, but then it wants a driver. So clearly the button on the front is used for like, debugging purposes. Typically a unit like this will have some type of button that you hold down while it powers up. It's pretty common on these embedded systems. Okay, it's time to take off this RF shielding and see what's inside this. This whole PCB is pretty small. It's got to have a system on a chip on it. The HDMI is right on that PCB, so there's probably no scaler. This is, but is it, what's it running? Okay, Rock Chip RK3032. There it is. So, yep, it's a BGA packaged wires. You can see the circuits for HDMI are going right into it. So this is an all digital unit. All right, guys, it's final thoughts time. So what do I think about the Arcade1Up HD gaming console? It's for $40. It's actually not bad, and I'll tell you why it's not a bad deal. Because if you bought this for a friend or your brother or your sister, some family member, it's plug and play. It's just gonna work. And then the quality of it, it's not perfect emulation, but at least it's not NES on a chip. It's not analog and noisy. It's not going to look horrible. The experience will be good enough that the person won't think, retro gaming is horrible. No, it's pretty decent. Now, it doesn't have any game saves, but, Mega Man has password support, so that's not a big deal. It's lackluster when it comes to features for sure from Arcade1Up. I think this was just a very simple device that came out. It was a cool touch that the branding is there. So if this is the first Arcade1Up unit that you ever got, the menus and stuff and the intro and the splash is all the same on the Arcade1Up cabinet. And for the quality of the hardware, now this is running better hardware than the Gen 1 Arcade1Up cabinets. Can you believe that? That first generation was running a single core processor. I believe this one's a dual core. So it's not as good as like the Gen 3, but again, $40. Now the other thing that upsets me just a little bit, this has more games than an Arcade1Up cabinet. It's only $40. So what's up with that? Like if you look at the Pac-Man unit, it has a whole bunch more games than the actual like $500 Pac-Man that you can buy. So come on, man. Arcade1Up, if you're going to sell these for like 40 bucks, maybe add a little bit more games to your arcade cabinets. I've never really complained about that before, but now that you put this unit out there, you just set up the bar. You got to add more games to your arcades now. So that's all I have to say, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.